Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I have just seen Halloween Kills, the sequel to the 2018 semi-reboot of the Halloween franchise, which itself was a sequel to the original 1978 Halloween. Okay, there's going to be a full spoiler review. I'm going to just go into everything. I have a lot of feelings and opinions about this movie, okay? Because this movie, from all the reviews before seeing it, it was very divisive. And I was a little concerned going in, especially like the more reviews I read, the more concerned I started to get, because I was like, I don't know what I'm walking into here. Like, I am a fan of the Halloween franchise. I've seen all of them, I believe, at least once. Some I've seen many times. But I just didn't know what I was walking into. So let's go into my positives, and then I will go into my criticisms. Okay, so my positives first. This movie, I think this movie begins really strong, and this movie ends really strong. Okay, so you can probably already guess what my cons are going to be based off that. But the other thing is that near the end of this movie, near the beginning of this movie, they have a whole segment that is a flashback to the night of the 1978 Halloween. So it's basically where that first original movie ends with him having vanished mysteriously. This one picks up with the cops chasing him through neighborhoods, and the way that they filmed this to look like 70s footage was really impressive, actually. Like, it worked really well for me. In fact, while I was watching that whole opening segment, I was kind of like, I would just watch this movie. Like, I would, like, if they filmed the whole thing to look like a movie from the 70s like this, because it still obviously looked, clean and in HD and IMAX and all that stuff, right? It looks super clean, but like the way that they had the color grading and the lighting, and like it was all very 70s looking, and I was like, I would watch this is working. So maybe one day they'll do something like that. But I really enjoyed this whole segment of them finally capturing him, because that was one of the lingering mysteries, is that because they have basically deleted the original Halloween 2, we don't know how Michael Myers was caught or defeated or whatever that night, because the last we saw in the new canon was that he disappeared in 1978, and then somehow he has, 40 years later, he's under arrest. So we needed to see exactly how he was captured that night, because we don't know that information now. So I am really glad that they cleared that up, because that was something I was kind of walking in here going like, I hope they cover that, and they indeed did. So they did a great job there. Right off the bat at the beginning of this movie, like in the first, 30 minutes, he gets off a pretty good amount of kills, against the firefighters and a couple other people. And I think that this movie just opened really strong. And they even, get into what will be, a very big part of this movie. They get into how what's his name, Tommy Doyle, and the girl that was the children that were being babysat that night in 1978. Obviously they're all full adults now, obviously. Basically it's this group of survivors at a bar, and they try to rally each other up once they discover that, like, oh, Michael Myers is in town. They see him on the news, and they start seeing all these reports of like, oh yeah, 6-8 hours ago, bodies were found here and here, and basically the events of the first movie. And so I think this movie does a really great job of really making it feel like this is the same exact night. Like, all of those events in that first movie, the 2018 movie, happened just a couple hours earlier. So the setup for this movie was really great, and the ending, the last, I'm gonna say the last 30 minutes, 40 minutes even, they ramp up, and it's everything that I wanted this movie to be in the last 30 minutes or so. which is good. You know, I'll get into my cons in a second, but I'm just really, really happy that this movie ended so strong for me, because now I'm so excited to get into this third final chapter. You know, and it definitely does feel like they have something that they want to do here at the end. Like they have an idea of what they want to do, because as I actually had heard pretty recently, apparently the original plan was to only do 2 movies that were going to be filmed at the exact same time, and they had an ending in mind. But they wanted to make that first movie, the 2018 movie, because they kind of wanted more of an, you know, like the setup, the original, like, okay, we're back in Haddonfield, Michael Myers is back, you know, all the main characters are back. You know, they kind of wanted to do like this introduction film of like getting the audience back in the mood for it, and then they would do their 2-parter where they would like actually end this trilogy, whatever kind of ending they have. I don't know if they plan on actually killing Michael Myers or not. I don't know. The other positives I have is essentially that I felt that this movie actually did move 2 other very important things forward for the actual lore of Michael Myers. And what I mean by that is this version of Michael Myers. So, for example, the first one is that, you know, again, because they have deleted that original Halloween 2, they're not counting that. That means that Michael Myers and Laurie Strode are not brother and sister. You know, and the reason that's important is because if they're not brother and sister, then Michael Myers has no reason to go after her, really. You know, there's not like this crazy like you know, blood family curse and all this other nonsense that they kept on adding on in the original series. So basically what they've done is they've put Michael Myers back to where he is just a crazy serial killer, and by pure chance he ran into Laurie Strode. And even in that 2018 movie, the only reason he ran into Laurie Strode again was because the evil doctor that he had drove him there to her house. That's the only reason he was there at all. So they do this interesting thing throughout the movie where Laurie believes that Michael Myers is going to come for her at the hospital, and that he wants to follow her, and that he's obsessed with her just as much as she has become obsessed with him, when in fact the opposite turns out to be true. Michael Myers, in this iteration of Michael Myers, does not care about Laurie Strode. He's not obsessed with her. He's not following her. He's not like trying to chase her down and that's his end goal. This Michael Myers is truly, I think for the first time since the original movie, truly just a force of nature that is going to kill anything in its way until it gets home. It doesn't have ulterior motives. It doesn't have like an end goal. It's just a hurricane of death. And it doesn't, like, you know what I mean? It doesn't have like these personal vendettas or anything crazy like that. It is just a guy who's going to kill people who happen to cross his path. And Laurie Strode just happens to have twice now in her life crossed his path, but he does not care about her. You know, and that's what this movie makes very clear. Some people are going to be upset about that. Some people are going to say, no, I want them to both have like this destined rivalry where they, you know, both of these 2 characters are gonna, you know, go at each other. But that's what this movie definitely makes clear, is that this version of Michael Myers does not care. Laurie Strode is obsessed with him, thinks that he's after her, and she's paranoid and all that stuff. And honestly, it kind of makes me just feel bad for Laurie Strode, because, you know, it's like all these years Michael Myers probably doesn't even know your name. You know, in like this weird way. It's like he does not even attempt to go to the hospital because he doesn't care. Like that's not his goal at all. He, you know, like there's no familial connection here. There's no destiny connection here. It's just Michael Myers is gonna kill. That's what he does because that's who he is. So I do like that they did address that. You know, like they addressed the fact that by by taking away the brother and sister connection, you've effectively severed whatever, you know, destiny, blood curse tie that they had in the original series. And so you have a much more interesting thing going on here where Laurie Strode, she just wants revenge at this point. You know, like at first she thought that Michael was going to come for her throughout this whole movie, and he never does. And by the end of it, she's like, he has to die then. Like, he's not going to come for me. He's just out there killing folks, and he's just going home. He doesn't, so he has to die. So I did enjoy that. The other thing that I love that they have cemented and they have like established, and they're not being vague about it anymore, is that Michael Myers is indeed a supernatural entity. And what I mean by that is, so in that original Halloween movie, Michael Myers gets injured pretty severely. He gets shot several times, and then he disappears, right? And then in the 2018 one, he avoids getting shot. He avoids getting super severely injured. Obviously, he still takes quite a beating in that first 2018 movie. And he almost burns to death, but, you know, of course he escapes. And throughout most of this movie, he avoids a lot of the similar fate. You know, he avoids getting shot. He avoids doing this and that. And so, you know, Halloween for a long time has always kind of ridden this line between, is he an immortal supernatural entity, or is he just a really tough, strong guy who does not seem to feel pain, you know? And I love that they have finally put like this definitive thing on it, because near the end of the movie, and I think this is actually like one of my favorite parts, and this is why kind of the movie ended so strong. He finally gets cornered by this mob that had been built up for the whole movie to chase down Michael Myers. He gets cornered by them, and they beat the shit out of him. He gets stabbed. He gets stabbed by the knife by the granddaughter. He gets stabbed with a pitchfork through the back by Laurie Strode's daughter. And then he just gets shot a whole bunch of times. He gets stabbed and beat with bats and wooden planks. And he gets, you know, he's gotten stabbed like 10 million times at this point in the movie, right? And this is the moment where it's like, okay, if he's a normal dude, then he's dead, right? Like, there's no way, even conceivably, even if you're like, oh, but maybe maybe he just doesn't feel pain, and maybe he patches himself up later in private or something, you know. But it's like, no, he gets back up, he stands back up after all of that, and he just kills the whole crowd of the mob. The whole, like, there was probably like 15 people there beating him down. And he kills all of them. He just stands back up, and none of it, nothing. There's nothing. So I do love, in the whole time while that's happening, Laurie Strode's she's given this speech about how, like, the more he kills, the stronger he gets, the more invincible he gets. He's not a man. He's just evil, right? And, you know, I'll get into my cons in a second, but this speech happening while just showing him get back up, it deserved the hype it got in this final act here. And it's just definitive that, like, okay, he is indeed just the personification of evil. He's not a human being. Whatever he is, however he operates, we don't know, but clearly stabbing and shooting him doesn't do anything. And I'm glad they finally established this, and I do appreciate that it was not until the very final, like, act here where they're like definitively like, no, he literally just stands back up. Because, you know, we've seen all the other Halloween movies, and he's always been like this crazy, tough, strong guy, and sometimes he'll get shot and he'll fall down, and then he'll get back up later, and, you know, it's like, okay, maybe he's invincible, or maybe he's not. Maybe he just, you know what I mean? Maybe he just stitches himself up. But it's like, I'm just glad that we finally have a cemented acknowledgement of, like, yes, he is supernatural in some kind of weird, invincible way. You know, I don't know if I want them to explore that more than that. I think I'm okay with them just leaving it there. You know, they do not need to go back into a Celtic blood curse or anything like that. I am okay with them just saying he is the embodiment of evil, and he is seemingly invincible. You can stab him and shoot him and do anything else, There's no stopping him. Does he regrow those fingers that Laurie shot off in the 2018 movie? I don't know. In fact, I'm kind of interested to watch this movie again and be like, does he have those fingers? Because if those just come back, then he's more supernatural. You know, that just kind of leads even more to how supernatural he is. But in any case, I'm glad that we finally got like an answer to that. You know, it's always been like sort of this line that was written, because we have characters like Jason Voorhees who have straight up died and then been struck by lightning bolts, and then they come back to life. And then, you know, basically Jason Voorhees is, you know, over the span of his franchise, Jason Voorhees became more zombie like, and, you know, he's got regeneration powers and all that. But Michael Myers has always been more vague than that. They've never like gone into it as much as they have in this movie, and I appreciate that. So, you know, that's two very important things for the lore that they did. He does not care about Laurie Strode. He does not have any kind of like goal to like end her life and all that. Like, he just, by here, you know, if she happens to be in the room, he'll kill her, but he's not like after her. And he is indeed a supernatural entity, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so I think that about covers my positive things, my things that like I'm really excited for the third movie now. They ended it really strong. There's a lot of good things in here. Oh, and the gore, the kills are amazing. I don't know what else I can really say about that, but like a lot of the kills in this movie are pretty brutal and bloody and gory, and it's pretty awesome. So there's plenty of that in this movie. Okay, so let's go on to my cons. And oh man, whew. Okay, so the cons of this movie, the things that I'm like, oh, got me worried for a minute. Large amounts of the middle of this movie. Okay, the beginning's great, the ending's great. The middle of this movie was genuinely getting me concerned that this was about to be a really bad movie. Like I was like, it slows down so many times, you know, and every once in a while in the middle of the movie we'll get some good kills, but you know, Laurie Strode's at the hospital the whole time giving speeches, you know, basically what I would call trailer speeches. You know, like this is the audio that you would play if you're editing a trailer and you need, you know, a character to be talking about how cool Michael Myers is and how, you know, like he horrified this town for 40 years and we've lived with this, but evil dies tonight. You know, if you need like some kind of get hype speech about like how awesome this movie's gonna be, you know, these are the kind of speeches you would have in the movie, right? My problem is that Laurie Strode has about 3 of these speeches throughout the movie. What's his name? The kid who the one who was the little kid in the first movie, and now he's the adult kind of leading the mob. I'm forgetting his name. He has at least 3 of these speeches, you know, these trailer speeches where it's like, evil dies tonight, Haddonfield's gonna take it in its own hands, justice for this, you know. And I think even the other cop who, by the way, the cop who got stabbed by the evil doctor in the 2018 movie, he's alive. He's also in the hospital for the whole movie, along with Laurie Strode. He also has at least 2 speeches that he gives. And all of this basically happens in the middle of the movie. And it's just a lot of exposition. A lot of it is pretty repetitive. Like several characters talk about how like he's haunted my life for 40 years and my family for 40 years and this town for 40 years. Evil has to be stopped. We have to kill him. We have to finally have Halloween end. We have to kill him. And, you know, and it's like I've had so many characters talk about how we have to end him. We have to kill him. It's like, yeah, I know. Can we get on with it? Like, you know, and that all happens in the middle of the movie, and it definitely felt like you could take out like 4 of these speeches that characters are giving and you could speed this up. And it was just really strange how many times they repeated the same thing, you know. They were all basically saying the same idea, so that was really weird, and it slowed down the movie a lot, and it kind of just it made me worried, honestly, because I was sitting there for a while in the movie, probably for a good like 20 minutes of this movie, and I was like, oh my god, they haven't done anything in a while, and another character is starting their speech, and I'm kind of getting worried. You know, like the daughter has a speech, and then the granddaughter has a speech about how much they want to kill Michael Myers and how much he deserves to die, and then it was the whole thing. My other major negative of this is they have this whole plot line where the mob gets all hyped up. The mob of the whole town gets together, and they're all like, we're gonna kill Michael Myers, evil ends tonight, you know, and you think it's gonna be this cool, like, okay, the mob versus Michael Myers, which we eventually do get at the end of the movie, and it was cool when it finally happened. The problem is they do this weird plot line where one of the other patients of the institution that escaped from that crashed bus in the 2018 movie, one of the other patients was still missing, and he's just going around town. He's not really doing anything. Like, he tries to steal a car for a second, and then they all chase him, but he gets away, and then he shows up at the hospital like asking for help. Genuinely, like, there's just a guy asking for help, but you know, he's not mentally all there. And then everyone's like, is that Michael Myers? Is that Michael Myers? And then the whole mob goes crazy saying, it's Michael Myers, get him, really for no reason, because this guy was like 2 feet too short to be Michael Myers anyways. You know, and I understand what they're trying to do here. Mob mentality, people stop thinking, they stop being rational at all, everyone just starts going with the crowd and then trying to do whatever they can, because it's all fear-based, right? And I get what they're doing. They chase this guy down, and the daughter, Laurie Strode's daughter, tries to save him, but then he ends up jumping out of a window because, you know, he's being chased, and then he ends up dying. And then they show like how gruesome his death was at the end. And it's supposed to be this whole like, oh, we're the monsters now. Michael Myers has this town so gripped in fear that you know, we're just this monster mob causing even more death and all this. And this chase sequence, it felt like it went on for like 15 minutes. Honestly, it did. There was so much stuff between all the speeches and this whole plot line where the mob chases down the wrong guy. It felt like you could have cut out so much of this. It was really weird, and it slowed the movie down. And the whole time they're chasing this guy down and everyone's going crazy in the hospital, I'm like, where's Michael Myers? And I want to see what Michael Myers is doing right now. So that, I think, is a major negative, and I think that is why you're seeing so many negative reviews for this movie, is because like the middle section of this movie really just, honestly, it just drags. And and that's why, again, I'm thankful that it ended so strong, because I am still excited for this last movie. But there's no denying this middle section, they needed to cut some of this out, because like, why is this here? I understand what you're trying to do. You know, mob mentality, you know, fear is making people do crazy things, and they end up becoming monsters themselves out of fear of Michael Myers, you know. So, and I get it, right? Like, the very presence, the very idea of Michael Myers is such a scary thing that it causes this town to basically go crazy, and they end up basically causing the death of an innocent guy for no reason. I get that. It feels like there was a way to do that message that would have taken up about 5 minutes instead of 20 minutes, you know? Or at the very least, you could have shortened that hospital chase. You could have shortened all of this. So I don't know. Those are my major negatives. The fact that so many characters give this speech over and over and over again, when you could have done that like twice instead of 5 times. And this weird plot line they did with this other guy. Now, I will say I enjoyed that they do a couple more flashbacks back to the 70s when the sheriff is kind of telling his story about how he stopped Loomis from killing Michael Myers that night, and he kind of feels bad about it. I am okay with that plot line. You know, it didn't take up too much time, and I do enjoy the look of the 70s footage whenever they did another flashback to it. They did kind of do this weird thing where it's like he accidentally shot his partner, and then the other cop was like, well, here, we'll just say Michael Myers did it or something. you know. So it was like, that was kind of strange. That didn't seem to go anywhere, you know. The bigger point of the story seemed to be that he stopped Dr. Loomis from shooting Michael, which, by the way, like, getting, because I believe the actor for Dr. Loomis has been dead for quite some time, so, you know, the way that I don't know if they just did like a deep fake or what they did, but it looked really good, you know. So like, I was really impressed with that whole sequence. So yeah, just this movie, it did a lot of things right, and it answered a lot of the right questions, but it also made some very strange decisions for me, that I can see where the divisiveness is coming from. So I'll say this: if you liked the 2018 Halloween and you just want to see where the story is going, then, you know, go ahead and watch this for the story, right? Because it does a lot of that. It does, like, okay, you kind of see where everyone's mindset is at and all this. Laurie Strode doesn't do a lot. She stays in the hospital, and, you know, this movie kind of, its whole thing was talking about how Laurie Strode is not Michael Myers' main goal. So, you know, I don't know how you'll feel about that, but yeah, this was fine. It was fine. I feel like if I could take this movie, I could take a good 20 minutes out of its total runtime, it would be a much better, faster paced, you know, more enjoyable movie. But yeah, if you go in there knowing that this is gonna happen, I feel like you'll have a better time. Anyways, so yeah, that was my Halloween Kills review, and I'm excited for Halloween Ends. I'm curious to see what their plan is, because I know that they've had an ending in mind this whole time, so I'm curious to see where that's going. And just, yeah, I wish that this had been cleaned up a little. You know, it feels like they had plenty of time to edit this down, so I'm not really sure what happened here, but you know, it is what it is. I liked it enough that I'm excited for the next one, and I'm glad that it ended really strong. You know, maybe if you get this on Netflix or DVD or whatever, maybe fast forward the middle a little bit, you know, especially the sequence where they're chasing the guy. That has nothing to do with the movie, really. You can just skip that entirely. Honestly, you can. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought about Halloween Kills. Let me know if you've seen it, or you're gonna go see it, or if you're gonna wait for Netflix, because it's like, it's okay, it's fine. But I mean, I don't know, it's we're in October, we're in the middle of October, Halloween time. I would say if you just wanted a scary Halloween movie to watch, just to get yourself in the mood for the holiday, then yeah, go ahead and go for it. All right, I will see you guys next time. Bye.